One of the things that Andrew Yang is addressing and that many people are grappling with is the fact that automation is inevitable for probably somewhere between 50 and 70% of the jobs being done today by human beings. So whether we're, and this is a growing trend, so we're moving towards automating driving, so all taxi drivers, all truck drivers, van drivers, etc. So automation of driving. We're automating call centers and communication types of that nature. It would be logical to automate at least 60% of all the paperwork shuffling around. Teaching may be more and more automated because at some point artificial intelligence data sets plus the world body of knowledge will allow students to learn in VR by putting on a headset more intelligently, more interestingly than they will be able to learn from any teacher. What I mean is, if you've got sensors that are regulating pulse, that are regulating and tracking chemicals and cycles in brain waves, then we're going to have headsets and gadgets that have a better sense of peak learning than anyone on the planet today. So if you understand, for example, because you wear a VR headset, that you learn that your peak absorption time for new information to really think is 90 minutes between 11 and 12:30 p.m. and that your attention span, is optimally geared to 60 minutes with a break in between. Then your AI is going to allow you to prioritize topics to be learned based on well-being. So if you're aiming towards a life path of for example, doing healing medicine or integrating and supporting people in healthy relationships, as a focus for one's life, then there are certain skills that, independent of historical curriculum, will be naturally prioritized. Meaning, for example, an AI can go out into the future and into the planet and say, look, the people who are doing best in your field are relying on these things more than anything else. And this, of course, can be, checked and said, yeah, that makes sense. But there can be suggested topics for your peak point in the day of learning and stretching, and then that'll be scheduled at that time. Similarly, a variety of different experiments can go on, from mild shock therapy with microvolts to bring about stimulation around certain things, to exercise, to integrated virtual reality where you're seeing your subject integrated with your walk. Imagine going for a walk in nature with a pair of goggles and possibly a neural link which Elon Musk is developing right now. Imagine going for a walk with enhanced reality goggles where you go to the beach that you're at, but that you get to study mathematics and biology and ecology as your program adapts to your environment and location via GPS and gives you in real time Latin names of the plants that you're looking at, connections between and historical connections between those plants and how those plants are being used around the world historically and present, with people voting in real time in an interactive matrix of knowledge where people are voting to say, well, let's that bit of information seems really relevant to what? To well-being. It's all about well-being. So that bit of information seems highly relevant to well-being, so that gets upvoted. And this is very important because different countries and cultures around the world will use, for example, a plant differently. But also different points in history. There may be no current use for a given plant, but there may be a very powerful use in 1850 that phased off as what? Something else came on, or there was a shift in the theory from one point to another. Well, this allows certain time periods to be highlighted so that the thing that a new person comes across is an evolutionary meme relative to well-being developed by people in real time around the planet in a way that says, 90% of people like you, that there may be some bifurcations based on, for a plant, for example, in Asia, there's all these focus on whitening. I don't agree with it, but there's all this emphasis on, billions of dollars being targeted to help dark skin turn whiter. And so certain compounds, practices, diets, etc., relate to that in a way that someone else might be trying to get a tan. So there's bifurcations in prioritization, around this hypothetical plant we're talking about. But so when I say that people like you elevate, a certain period of time, a certain theory to a higher level, you have a situation where the top thing that most people find valuable is up at the top, and then right below that, the next layer of information that people find valuable, and it goes down and down and down. But you can go all the way down, hundreds of layers deep to the thing that, a small minority elevates, and you can track it by person. Now, this becomes incredibly important because the bleeding edge of the future is invariably defined by a distinct minority. So in a bell curve of adaptation, the bleeding edge and the laggards are both distinct minorities. And it takes intelligence, of course, to discern between those two minorities, but you never want to look at what the majority is doing and thinking if you want to understand the bleeding edge of the present or the future, because they're always following the bleeding edge of the past. The bleeding edge is always changing. Reality is always evolving and growing, which means that what is considered dogma today will be considered toxic tomorrow at some point in the evolutionary process, that there's a circular evolutionary process moving towards balance, moving towards symmetry. And if you follow that circle all the way around, then you have, what was cutting edge today, becomes, retro very soon, becomes, old-fashioned, etc. But you come around again eventually to it, with it being a new bleeding edge, but it's spiral in nature, so it's going to evolve. So what this means is that the people you most want to be interested in are not the majority. So you want to know what the majority is voting for well-being. But at an even deeper level, if you want to, and this is from moving from outdated and dogmatic information to present decent practices. But to go further into the bleeding edge, you need to be able to track specific individuals who by definition are not popular, by definition no one's heard of, because they always have the best ideas, a distinct minority. And so you want to be able to thread through data through the lens of particular people, so that if you track, for example, I'd be very interested in anything that Elon Musk elevates. And so when data input is occurring constantly in these educational interfaces or these augmented reality, now you can track it by majority upvote, but you can also track it by interests of specific people, and follow a thread of thought, to have an augmented reality by a specific individual that is, in a certain sense, your mentor. Now you've got mentorship at a whole new level, because imagine Elon Musk directing thought and attention through life and media, etc., but also commenting in some way, mentally or otherwise, about why he's reading this article and not reading this article, the patterns that he's seeing, and how these diverge and converge from the optimal pattern that he's imagining. Imagine being able to go through augmented reality through the lens of an Elon Musk, the lens of a mentor. See, now one individual has the capacity to have 1,000 mentors like that, with no additional expenditure of energy, and then what AI can do is transmit that over to I guess the corollary environment of your own life, because I think the most meaningful thing is to extrapolate as opposed to copy. So you want to extrapolate the best thoughts and patterns in one area and bring them over to another area. And in doing so, you want to, for example, go on your walk to your beach, to your forest, but have some of the extrapolations of mentors that you want to follow. This now takes us back to the Stone Age. I talked about this thing where, 300 or 400 years ago, there would tend to be more mentors. You'd learn probably from your father. But your father wasn't the best woodcutter, necessarily. Your father wasn't the best blacksmith in the world, certainly. But you'd learn one-on-one with a deep sense of connection. And we moved away from that. We destroyed the family matrix on so many levels, causing all kinds of dissociative trauma, loneliness, depression, disruption in generations, and we have decimated so many personas in the human psyche and elevated suicide rates and things like that, because we don't feel like we can meet our third human need for love and belonging in a fragmented group. And so we've moved into institutionalized learning, where you're learning in groups and you go to Ivy League universities and all this. But now the organizational structures that have come from universities and things have developed technologies, in this case augmented reality, that are going to allow us to have the same personality of mentor, to be able to share sense in augmented reality, to share messages in augmented reality, to capture vistas in a moment in 360-degree vision and transmit them to another human being technologically, to be able to have people approach you for mentorship for all around the world, to practice English, to practice thought development, to partner on things, to be able to go on a walk and have your glasses integrate the conversation so that the augmented reality is the person walking beside you. That parts of their reality morph in perhaps on a screen that you get to place where it is in your augmented reality, and what the opacity setting is so that you can see through into their reality but still see your reality or not. And of course, this is going to be fabulous when we have full self-driving, because now you've got the ability to turn full attention into a virtual environment. In fact, I think cars will, or transportation systems at their most valuable will be brain interfaces with 360-degree vision and connection between my reality and other realities around the world. I might put 25% of the circular environment around me in my vehicle. I might have a swiveling chair, to be able to move around to the different parts of the world that are engaging at different levels. Of course, that's moving smaller and smaller into one's mind. But I personally like being able to, not be stuck in a goggle and headsets, to be able to hear things in the environment. And so driving actually can become one of the most interesting environments. It's just about the right size for an individual or a couple of individuals to share, in an environment, to actually network with the world and with information while moving from one location to another. There does need to be physical transportation, and so how what a great thing to be able to order a transportation experience, have it arrive seconds later, tell it the destination, and then send it the signal for the upload, where your whole setup is just automatically adapted as best as possible within that particular screen, and all the windows in the vehicle are a combination of screen on the inside and look through, so that you pick the opacity, or there's a symbol and you can see throughout into the outer world, and then snap back and it goes back to a screen, so that every surface around, you've got 360 degrees views on the out, looking out, and you've also got, so you've got screen and window combined, and that's really what that's really what I want, is to be able to I want to be able to have a glass interface or a contact interface. I want to be able to have some kind of a gesture and sound interface. I want my media experience to travel wherever I go. But in a car environment, what I really want is nice curved, screens 360 degrees that integrate with the doors, of course, so that there might be small openings and closings, but minimal seams, and that I get to pick through gesture or thought or a tap whether how much I see of the outer environment as I drive by or as the vehicle moves me along, and how much I'm seeing of what I'm focusing on, within the screen. And I want to make divides and have a whole different matrix of these different realities relating to one another. And I probably want to design lines where we have, transitions. Like I like soft transitions most of the time. but I want lines that say that this thing is related to here, it's related to here, and it's related to here. And this one is in the foreground, but these relationships are in the background, so I can go behind and tap and bring different ones to the fore. And that I establish the relationships between different people and different data points. And that there are suggestions that as I enter my media environment, my AI might say 360 suggested connections, meaning that we believe there is a connection between the person you've just met and this interest of yours. And there's a connection between the restaurant you went to and this diet preference. And so these are the suggested connections. And you would scroll through, and with probably a blink, because there's so many different connections, there's so many ways we're all connected. Just blink, yes, 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 no, yes, no, yes, 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 no, yes, 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 yes. And now those connections are there. It's one's intelligence is largely related to the sophistication of making decisions based on many, many connections. So the framework of intelligence, it's always minimum energy expenditure for maximum well-being. Now, this comes down to how many choices do you have. If you have infinite choices and knowledge or competency, and you have the understanding of what intelligence is, minimal effort for maximum result in terms of well-being, then now you've got a more intelligent framework because you have more choices to choose from. And it is the density and pixelation, meaning that a 4K screen has a lot more crispness and sharpness in the image because it's more data to more points. So the constant recommendation of updates of knowing this and this and this, connecting different people is enormous. It's huge, and so the AI suggesting 300 connections a day. If you can absorb 1,000 new connections a day, you have more choices available as you process constantly maximum well-being, minimal effort. But it takes consciousness, it takes awareness to know, is that a useful connection or is it not a useful connection? But the AI will kind of notice varieties. And at a very deep level, as we start sending real-time data. I mean, you think of dating and the fact that as much as 30%, think of a modern relationship where you might see each other for 90 minutes of moderate quality time. There's a lot of mediocrity in relationships, so 90 minutes of moderate quality of time is your average, is 360 hours a year. So you take 360 days of the year, you multiply it by 90 minutes, so you've got around 500 hours a year of waking consciousness with a partner. But then you've got 7 hours of sleep times 360. So obviously, hundreds and hundreds of percent more impact in the sleep. Now let's say that the way that you sleep with a partner, spooning on the left side, massaging, the amount, whether you have sex in the morning or sex in the evening or sex in the middle of the night, whether you talk about dreams in the morning, whether you review the day, what temperature the room is. Let's say that all of this information is being gathered by your devices, meaning your device knows when you go to sleep and what your ramp down is, and whether you talk a lot, much, and whatever, and whether you feel, and it also knows what you want. I'd like to be talking to my partner, she's asleep. I'd like to be doing this, but she's not interested. And so the AI has a model of what your ideal is and what's happening. Well, now you might have someone paired as a sleeping partner by your AI who talks to all the other AIs out there and just says, here are 100 people who sleep the way you want to sleep within a mile radius of your house. And of those 100 people, these are the people that are open to connecting with you. These are the people suggested by the AIs, and these are the people that have been, that's a mutual selection. Your AI talks to their AI and says it would be a perfect match. And then you say, okay, I'm open to that, or no, I'm not. And then you get notified of who connects and doesn't connect. And that's a learning algorithm. That was all well matched, but I didn't have the fact that I don't like smelling out brandy on someone's breath. I don't like the smell of brandy. Well, now the body sensors that are registering. So of those 100 people, how many people are emitting smells of brandy? Well, that's picked up by the phone, by the gadgets in the environment, and saying, okay, well, or that's the issue. So that you also have negotiation points to say, wow, you would be perfect to me, if you didn't do this, and I'd be perfect for you if I didn't drink brandy before sleeping. Am I willing to make that transition? You also have, of course, reduced lying in this, which is very, very, very helpful to have minimal lying in this environment. You cannot lie to an AI. The cost becomes too high, one, because when you lie, the AI has to know what's the deal. If you tell the AI that you like chocolate when you hate chocolate because you want to lie, to a particular person, now that lie is being broadcast out everywhere, and you're getting the reality that's right for the lie, but it's not right for you. And it creates higher trust also, when you can have AIs talking together and confirming, etc., biological things, because an AI would track, whether you're having sex with someone else and what's the location and all of that. And so by having transparency in AI, what you're really saying is, I want you to see me. I want you to see how I live and how I think and why. And you can rewind and kind of, you can track my location through the world. You can track my conversations because the audio's recording. You can track the view out of my eyes. You can track my body sensation. You don't have to say. You can say, wow, you're much more sexually aroused with this person. This is the person you have the highest sexual arousal with in your life. And it's not, no, that's not, yeah, that's the data. So the question is then, what do you do about it? Well, that's true. That is true. But I'm not acting on that because, they're an alcoholic and I have a real boundary with that. Or sex is not as important as the cult says it is, to me personally. I'm actually, I like what I'm doing with my time. I'm not trying to have maximum adrenaline and dopamine in my life. I'm actually trying to finish my book, and that would be a distraction for me. And so, but there can be a conversation relative to data, or there can be a pivot. If really the whole game is I'm following lust in either an addictive cycle or whatever, and I get to know that my highest excitement levels of anyone in my life are when I think of this person, spend time videoing with this person, and do I want to share that with them? My highest arousal points are with you, and does that cause a shift in reality? If they notice the same in their reality, then that's a basis for a data-based conversation to say there is a mutual pairing of highest peak like, for example, my brain lights up more with you than with anyone else. My sexuality lights up more with you than with anyone else. My schedule lights up with you more than anyone else in this and this and this area. And there is actually a possibility of a data-based form of intelligence, where if everyone is subservient to the ideal of intelligence, which is the highest frequency of well-being in a multidimensional state per unit of energy invested, and that's an intelligent definition of intelligence, as opposed to I can say Latin verbs in a dead language. Really? That's the definition? I have a degree in a subject that is irrelevant to my life? So you wasted a lot of money going to university for a subject you're not using, and now you think you're more intelligent than me when I've been doing what I wanted to do the whole time, and you've got a lot of debt to pay off? No, I'm not following that. But I'm creating massive amounts of well-being per unit of energy. Magnificent. And so we have this kind of sense of intelligent people want an intelligent definition of intelligence. And dumb people want to be like intelligent people to some degree, or people they think are intelligent. And no judgment about that. We're talking about pattern recognition here, not, certainly not any suggestion that smart people should be treated better than dumb people or have better hearts or innate value. No, none of that. Just, if at least in our cult, we like the idea of intelligence. And so if you realize these people have intelligence and they have an intelligent definition of intelligence, the best I can come up with is the efficiency of transforming energy, time, money, natural resources into human well-being. So if we have that framework set up, then you have a basis for transcendence, which is the sacrifice of the moment, the sacrifice of the dogma, the sacrifice of the status quo, the risk, the sacrifice of feeling for a higher purpose. Because when 10 people put intelligence ahead of fears and shames and taboos and bullshit, all 10 people's well-being goes up, not just linearly. You have the possibility of an exponential increase when we understand what we're sacrificing for. That it's not vertical in the sense that some person's well-being is valued more than another. It goes both ways. The closest I get to it presently with my wife is the 1 to 10 scale. 1 to 10, it would be a 10 for me if I could hug you and adore you and love you right now in every way. What's that for you? Well, it's an 8 for me. Okay, so we get 18 out of 10 or out of 20 for that particular scoring. And it would be, a 9 out of 10 for me to go and see this movie right away with you right now and do this. What's that for you? Well, it's a -2. Okay, so we have a net 7 for the relationship if we take that route. And you generally defer to the person who has the highest number. And so there's a form of sacrifice for something bigger, the relationship. And the commitment is to do the things that produce the highest value for the relationship, to extend empathy, the law of empathy, to defer to the person with the strongest feeling in a given state, because those feelings correlate to well-being. And so now you're doing this with well-being. And so you now have an artificial intelligence framework for measuring these. Some people are so traumatized and so afraid of the truth, they will not answer these 1 to 10 scales, and so, or they go numb. And so the body, though, still gets a little bit of a tingle. The body still knows the truth that the mind has partitioned, and so you get a saner, more intelligent reality. Now, all of this to say, going back to the place where we began, that a majority of the jobs, the things that we're doing today, will be obsolete in the next 50 years. Because within the next 50 years, on an exponential curve, the iterative nature of robots and artificial intelligence and 3D printing, or let's just say fully automated robotic production, meaning that within 20 years, at current exponential trajectories, we are going to be able to send, we're going to be able to communicate what we want, to define that in all kinds of different terms. That data will be digitized, and the interface between us and the world will know where to send that request based on competency. So I want a particular shirt, I want a particular gadget, I want a particular something. So I define the parameters and the value hierarchy, like flexibility, smoothness to the skin, biodegradability, recycled materials, whatever. I define the value hierarchy within that framework. And now the competencies within that value hierarchy are defined by more than 1 million sub-factories. There could be a micro factory that's 10 by 10 by 10 that has $100,000 of robotics. Now in that cube are spools of material, lasers, printers, this, that, and the other. A robot that can manufacture to my value standards an object that is better priced and more intelligent, meaning if it's local to me, there's less shipping involved, less energy expenditure. And I can say that I support local because I'm trying to, not pay for too many transportation costs for ecological reasons. So now that object produces that and gets it to me again based on my value hierarchy. If I've said I want to see stuff now, it's shipped to me in a drone that lands on the top of that cube, and it emerges in my cube. There's also a lot of digital objects that with enhanced virtual reality don't need shipping at all. I may want my town to recognize, I may want my glasses to recognize every plant in my town in Spanish and consider that digital project done when that parameter goes out and bids come in, and I click on accept, and within 3 days, everywhere I go with my augmented reality, every plant that I see anywhere in my town shows up in Spanish with the Spanish name. And I paid $200 to do that. And people might sell these objects. One person might go out and map the whole town, translate it into all the languages in plants, and have that as an alert. Anyone want to buy the Spanish name or the Greek name or whatever of all these plants? If so, it's $10 because it's diffused among 50,000 people, and and things like that. So how do we deal with the fact that older generations do not change that much? And so truckers are being laid off. Call centers are being laid off. I was just in a restaurant right now where the food was terrible. The staff was terrible. The inventory of the food, so it took 3 minutes to determine whether they had carrots for the salad. They made, then they didn't have the cheese I wanted. Then the sandwich didn't come with the avocado. The whole thing was a nightmare. The whole thing was a nightmare, giving me a buzzer, to say, your food is ready. Get it up. The only thing nice about the entire thing was the space. And it was 90% empty, like so many, venues. And so think about this type of situation in the automation age. Your phone is going to know what you love and what you don't like in photographs, in recipes. And you're going to go to a location you enjoy being in. And a robot is going to make everything perfectly. And manage. Robots will bring food supplies. Robots will grow foods. Robots will prepare foods. Robots will allow you to watch your food being prepared through the real-time camera on the robot that's making your food, and you can give feedback to the robot. Cook it a little more. That's what I mean by overdone. Or they can watch other robots. You see, the robot that made your perfect sandwich of all time has a photograph or a video of making your perfect sandwich of all time. And the whole thing, this was how the bread was made, this was how the bread was baked, this is how old the bread was, this was the cheese from this country, and this and this and this, and this was the mustard and this amount of mustard. That digital file of your perfect sandwich can now be accessed. Either you own it automatically or the venue sells you the digital recipe. The robotic moves needed to make the perfect sandwich. Now, we are not going to do these absurd things where there's a bakery, 30 miles away that sends out a van, and a person unloads the van and here's your French baguette. No. We're moving in the direction where different types of flour and different types of raw ingredients, some flash frozen, some flours and things, are in these different robotic venues, and they will make that perfect bread from scratch in the venue and then cut it at the right degree and melt the cheese, and they may or may not ferment or make their own cheese. That may be drone shipped. But when you place an order with an hour notice, I'm going to be arriving in this venue in my vehicle. There may be drone hubs, where you do want a 20-year aged Gouda from France, and that is preserved in a central food hub of specialty food. And if you've prioritized urgency around that, you pay for the drone drop for 4 slices of that cheese to be robotically removed from the storehouse and dropped at the restaurant that doesn't have your cheese but does have the bread you like and the ambiance you like and where you want to eat with your friends, but your favorite cheese is not there. And so you might actually order from the restaurant within minutes of drone takes off and drops in and comes into the machinery to be part of your sandwich. We're moving in that direction. And so we're looking at, in the next 80 years, probably 90% of the things that human beings are doing today will be done 10 times faster by a robot. And will be done 10 times cheaper in terms of energy expenditure, in terms of the fact that robots can work 24/7, the fact that robots don't have accidents, and if they do, they don't sue people, the fact that robots do the thing all the time, robots don't get drunk, robots don't have times of the month, robots can have cameras, robots don't have egos, so you can be you don't have to spend 5 minutes calming the feelings because you say, come on, that's not what the sandwich, I want to get it and bring it back and go back to thing and ignore the robot. But that's no way to treat a human being. And so human beings then become a gourmet experience as opposed to a logistical hassle. House cleaning, driving, gourmet restaurant experiences, dating concierge, education, flying a plane, boarding a plane, security. You see, a good AI can do a pattern of security that is 100 times better than the bullshit going on with human beings. What's the nickname of your account? Which I don't know. They will read your voice. They will if you've got an 80% profile for a low risk activity. I was just trying to see why had my credit card been canceled? This took me 3 calls to Bank of America because they wouldn't tell me. Which it turned out that one of my vendors had been hacked, so they were sending out a new card. They could have told anyone that. That's a low-risk thing to know. And they had my voice. They had me calling from home. They had me being able to log on to the desktop and see stuff there. They had email. And they couldn't, with all that, they couldn't determine that it was me. And so they couldn't get the information I needed, which was just what's happening. Okay, I'm being mailed a new card. Great, fine, done. This took a manager. It took this. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And AI, another situation with the local bridge authority. They sent the same thing. Someone hacked some credit card. So the card that's on file with the bridge authority is declined. So they start mailing out, fill out, we need a new payment. You call them up. I'm here to give you some new payment information for my account. Well, what's your PIN number? No idea. I'm here to pay my bill. Well, we can't let you pay your bill without your PIN number. Do you mean to say that you have been stopping perfect, generous strangers from paying my bill for my security? You fucked up morons. You don't have a clue. That's not helping me at all. I give you full authorization to let the entire world pay my bridge bill if they choose. And I don't want a PIN number to give you an updated credit card. Well, we can't let you do this. So this had to be done by snail mail. Meaning they would accept a letter from me. How do they know it's from me? How do they know I'm not a stranger paying my bill through mail? They don't. It's just absurd protocol. This is the kind of bullshit that human beings won't have to go through when an AI determines the risk level. How many people have been harmed by other people paying their bills? Zero? Okay, we're not even going to ask. Anyone? No security questions to pay your bill. But what's more, you don't have to do it. We'll talk with your AI. We're not going to waste your time. We're not going to waste our time ruining your life with our stupidity. So how do we do this? Anyway, we're looking at an 80% reduction. Robots will build bridges 24/7. Robots will pave roads with better there'll be integrated sequencing. They'll all come and drive themselves to the place at the right time at 2 a.m. when we want to be sleeping. So you have bridge construction, you have road construction, you have home construction, 3D printed houses 24/7, using sonar and laser so you don't have to have bright lights for the neighbors. Better, you don't have to worry about the composition mix of the concrete being consistent, things like that. The delivery of the materials to the job site, to the 3D printers on the job site, will be automated. We'll have tree planting that's automated. Robots out planting billions of trees in plugs, and other robots managing irrigation in things of that nature. There will be robotic surgeons, robotic doctors, and we've already talked about education. There will be robotic lovers, but of course that would be more of an educational tutorial to prepare so that we don't insist on the level of romantic stupidity of finally growing up and learning how to engage with someone with bitterness and despair and betrayal. I mean, robots aren't going to cheat on you. Robots are going to give you all the time to learn your ideal sexuality. That program can be shared with a partner, where your ideal sexual experience can be given as a simulation to other lovers who want to be your lover, and have a sentient experience, of that. This also, it frees up limitations of disabilities, of age. You can have augmented, reality. It's a profound change that's in the next 50 years. So coming back to why I do this video, one of the best ways to bring our culture into this dynamic is to tax automation, meaning that everything that is run autonomously has a 10% tax on it. Now, one way to do this is to say, okay, this truck is going to replace a driver. It's going to replace a driver. So this automated truck is going to retire a truck driver. That's a reality. That truck driver at age 55 is not going to become a computer programmer, is not going to suddenly do this and that and the other. They've got back problems. They don't know something else. They don't have good relational skills because they've been driving a truck and being alone and all that. And so, but a 10% tax on the truck that is replacing the autonomous service, or that I'm not sure quite how to do it. It could be a tax on the entire service. That 10% of the value, perhaps, being generated by robots that replaces human jobs in the intergenerational transfer is allocated to the meeting of human needs, to the guarantee that every human being in that environment will survive, will feel secure in that survival, will have a sense of love and belonging which is very, very important. And these are the three basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We'll survive, we'll be secure, we'll have a sense of love and belonging in their environment, and that this money, in the profits, etc., the value percentage of robots is going to provide that. Not a guarantee of 5-star whatever, but an absolute guarantee that you're going to have basic, healthy, organic food available to eat. You can buy more luxury items and do this and that, fine. A warm, safe place to sleep that's legal and safe and protection. Adequate medical care. That this is a human need. And this also will, we don't have enough doctors, there's immigration, all this bullshit. Robots aren't blocked by immigration. Robotic nurses can provide better nursing care once the robotic technology reaches a certain point in home, thus freeing up the whole bullshit around hospital bureaucracy. People will be able to buy health care and have it delivered to their home robotically for less money than paying health insurance to have a crappy experience at a hospital. Meaning that, say, $4,000 that I pay every year for health insurance so that I can spend time in a horrific hospital going through bureaucracy waiting in line. That $4,000 can access a robot or a set of robots that can arrive in my house within moments of needing stuff with appropriate medical supplies dropped in by drone, so that I can have medical care and checkups in my home and I can subscribe to the programming protocol I want. If I believe in Indian medicine, or I want to have a Filipino doctor inspect me via the cameras and stuff and suggest what's working best, or if I want my AI to scan the world and say, who has the highest return on well-being anywhere in the world? Is it, whatever is being done currently in my country, or is it somewhere else? I'm going with that. And so we're bypassing the bureaucracy and stuff like that. And I can have my own personalized robot care that's vastly superior to the dehumanization of my local HMO. So a 10% tax, though, on all automation-related business should be adequate to provide for the human needs of every single human being in the planet in a transition economy, one. And two, it's important to know that this will bring deflation, and that deflation is a positive thing, that medical costs will go down, that empowerment will go up, that manufacturing will go down, and that this creates the possibility, if shifting from a capitalist paradigm where money is more important than human beings and people are valued based on the amount of money they make, to human beings are more important than money and things, and that human beings are valued to the degree that they create value for other human beings and themselves, and that they are valued by their intelligence, meaning that if I create value for 1,000 people with 1 gallon of gas, 2 trees, my mind in 3 hours, that's more valuable than someone else who creates the same amount of value for 100 people with 1,000 gallons of gas, cuts down a whole forest, and takes 1,000 hours of time. That we've expanded the energy consumption exponentially for a reduced amount of well-being. That's not as valuable as a leadership position. That the value in leadership is determined by intelligence. Intelligence is determined by the efficiency of energy transformed into human well-being. So a tax on automation, human needs tax, a human needs tax basically, that guarantees every human being on the planet survival, security of survival, and basic love and belonging. Without these needs being met, we have trauma and we have PTSD, we have escalated disease, and we have mediocrity and misery. With those needs being guaranteed, we have ecological, psychological, cultural diversity at a very high level, because people don't have to focus on survival. They can focus on inspiration. They can focus on uniqueness. They can focus on personal meaning, and not be distracted by, oh my gosh, I can't pay the rent if I'm doing something interesting and unique that no one else is doing, but that no one has the intelligence to pay. And so, anyway, that's a huge return on investment. And then an import tax on other things in other countries that are made by robots. Just so if there's a 10% tax on anything, related to automation, that is plenty to fund the basic human needs in a deflationary market.